Namasarvebhya. This is the course on Sanatana Dharma for youth. This is the third day in the series of lectures. How do we learn science from our scriptures? The lecture is by Dr. CSR Prabhu. We will start the lecture after the prarthana. Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashi Varnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Over to you, Dr. Prabhu.
Okay. Good evening, friends. So today we'll be discussing high technology in ancient Sanskrit manuscripts. I have shared a document which I wrote on this unique case of high technology. Before we go into it, we should know what is high technology as against what is low technology. Normally, what we see today around India, like temple construction, temple architecture, or Ayurveda, ordinary Ayurveda, which deals with some simple tablets and things like that, as well as the basic vastu. These kind of things are known as the low technology, in the sense there is no advanced, very high technology in it. Whereas if you look at the subjects like Vimana Shastra or Vimanas or Astras or Shapas or Lokas, that is extra terrestrial travel and so on. So that can be called as high technology. So I have shared this paper I hope it is shared in the group.
Yes, Guruji.
Yeah. So the basic question is, if all the descriptions of high technology like Vimanas, Astras given in the Mahabharata or Ramayana or other Puranas, are they fake or are they true? If they are true, then what is the evidence? If they are fake, what is the evidence? So there are two types of people. One type who say that it's all fake. They also don't have any evidence. And the other type are those like us who will say they are all true, but they also don't have evidence. So that being the case, the evidence is very crucial, whether it is true or false. Can we declare, can we decide with proof? So in that context, Viman Shastra and related Shastras come into the picture. When I was a student in engineering in JNTU, I came across a very old book called Viman Shastra, written in Hindi translation of the original Sanskrit text. The Hindi translation was by one Brahma Muni Parivrajak of Gurukul Kangdi in Haridwar, of a Sanskrit text known as Viman Shastra, comprising of Vaimanika Sutras of Bharadwaja's Yantra Sarvasva, Vaimanika Prakaranam. There is supposed to be a Yantra Sarvasva in which there are supposed to be many Prakaranas. Vaimanika Prakarana is this one. That too, first part, not the entire thing. And then there could have been other parts like Nauka Prakarana or any other Prakarana. We don't know exactly what it is. Yantra Sarvasva. So in this supposed to be Vimana Shastra, authored supposed to be Vivaradvaja, in terms of sutras. Sutras are very few. The most of the text comprises of a narrative in slokas and in prose and poetry in Sanskrit, with a commentary comprising quotations of various other Shastras. And that commentary is supposed to be given by one Bodhananda Vritti, it is supposed to be. So this Bodhananda, he might have been in Kali Yuga, because the language he uses is somewhat modern. Whereas the language used in the Viman Shastra by itself, the other Shastras being quoted, is quite heterogeneous, in the sense around 100 different other Shastras are being quoted in line, and they comprise quotations of Sanskrit language belonging to different periods of time. You can make out from this time. Like some of them contain some of the lost Vedic characters, like Upadmaniya, and some of them contain archaic words which are not in use in Sanskrit in more recent periods, and some of them are relatively more recent. And these Shastras which are being quoted in line in this text, they belong to something like 100 different books on almost like 100 different subjects: metallurgy, architecture, or mechanical engineering, aeronautics, rocketry, electricity generation, all kinds of things. And none of them are modern. They are not available anywhere. Out of them, Agastya Samhita is supposed to be available somewhere. They claimed it, but I have not seen it. There's so many others like Roha Tantra, and so on and so forth. We don't know whether where and when they were existing. I searched throughout the globe. I could not find them. But their quotations are being given here, and they are in different linguistic characteristics. So, how do we ascertain whether this is authentic or not authentic? In fact, when this book was discovered, in fact, it was printed in 1959, 57, 59 by Arya Pratinithi Sabha in Delhi under the authorship of Brahma Muni, who was from Gurukul Kamdi of Haridwar. So a lot of people who read that book, they were again of two types. One who are very much impressed, they think that it is very great science and technology. And the other who wanted to oppose this. So those who wanted to oppose, they wrote a paper in the Bangalore Indian Institute of Science, one team of people, saying that this whole thing is not feasible. They never said it is a complete hoax, but they so wrote that this particular Vimana will not fly because it is going against aerodynamic principles, like it is too heavy to fly or what. And those who wrote that paper, they never did any investigation in terms of experimentation. So the leader of that was H.S. Mukunda of Indian Institute of Science. So everybody thought this paper was genuine, whereas the editor of the journal,
Guruji, we lost your voice.
Hari Om. We lost your voice, sir.
and this Vimana Shastra was in Hindi translation was very popular among the circles of Arya Samaj. And when I came across in 1972-71 period, I was a student of engineering. So every day in the lunchtime, we were sitting with that book in the lawns of JNTU College of Engineering at Masap Tank at that time, before Kokatpalli. my classmates, my juniors who were interested in this topic were trying to find out what is written there. So I knew Sanskrit by then, so I was translating, and they started writing down diagram, explanation, or whatever they could. So we have deciphered around 13 electrical machines from that book. There's one Vidyut Yantra, it is something like a DC motor. Vidyut Utpadaka Yantra, it was something like a DC generator. And then there is a Vidyut Dvadashaka Yantra, which is a high voltage neutralizer of lightning, and so on. 13 electrical machines, yantras, totally 31 yantras, out of which 13 are electric. We have drawn diagrams, we have interpreted, and they seem to be feasible even from modern standpoint, with some differences, like only batteries were being used. There was no alternating current. It's all DC, not our batteries, but their own batteries. This Agastya Samhita is supposed to describe a battery. So there are some kind of acids and some kind of metals and some kind of electrodes which are used in the battery, and the current was flowing. And that was being used for the various purposes in the Vimana, in various yantras. So later on, I shifted to IIT Bombay to study MTech there. And to my surprise, I found inside IIT Bombay, the chemical engineering department, there was a project going on called Chumbak Mani project. So it was initially a voluntary project by one Buskute, was a lecturer in chemical engineering, and one Naren Sheth from Bombay city, who used to go there to play the role of translator, decoder, decipherer. And in the lab, in the chemical engineering department, one item was produced that's called Chumbakamani. So they had some shloka in Vimana Shastra, which gave something like 15-20 inputs. Chumbaka, Karkadaka, Par, Mercury, and magnetite, and various other inputs, which this Naren Sheth has deciphered and brought the material from Ayurvedic Kachori shops to IIT Bombay, and various mineral ores and mercury and various herbs and roots and so on. So that was melted in the crucible in the chemical engineering department, and it, after melting, it became a black substance. And that treatment also was given there, heat treatment. So that black substance was declared as Chumbakamani. So they did all kinds of tests on it, and they confirmed it is a soft ferrite, and it had semiconductor properties. So the TIFR in Bombay performed investigation and confirmed it is a soft ferrite and a semiconductor. So semiconductors are known in modern times. Only 1950s, the germanium silicon semiconductors were in vogue. So nobody was willing to believe, but it's a fact that it was showing something like germanium in its characteristics. So the CSIR instituted a project called Chumbak Mani project to reinvestigate the whole process, which Anil Buskute and Naren Sheth performed. One Maheshwar Sharan was appointed, chemistry department, which is just next door to chemical engineering. And his wife also, Madhuri Sharan, who is alive now. Maheshwar Sharan passed away. And various others were involved. And again, they repeated the whole thing which was done by another team. They simply repeated. They didn't contribute anything new. So after finishing that, they reconfirmed that yes, all this is correct. So they took money from CSIR for that purpose. And recently also I was speaking to Madhuri Sharan, who is in 80s. The moment I spoke about all those events at that time, I'm talking of 76, 77. So she was totally shaken up. She stopped talking to me after that. And they removed me from the WhatsApp group, thinking that, and then she started calling up the university and IIT with in panic. It appeared, to me, it appeared that she was in panic because they didn't do anything new. They just copied the previous results and represented, and they have taken the money for it. So, notwithstanding all this, Naren Sheth was championing the cause. He was in Bombay City, he lived in Kemp's Corner. So finally they made some 3-4 items, Chumbakamani, Paragranthika Drava and Panchadhara Loha. So in the Paragranthika Drava, when Chumbakamani is kept and 2 wires were taken out in Panchadhara Loha, it was generating current when it exposed to sunlight. So this was demonstrated photovoltaic effect. And it so happened that I left IIT and then I went to Bombay, TCS. Then I joined CMC in Hyderabad. So then I went to America. So I was in different cities. I was 3 months in MIT, Boston. So when I told the people there's such a book, there are a lot of Asians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Iranians, Iraqis, apart from Indians, who felt very happy that such a book exists. And even if 1,000th part of that book is genuine and true, it proves that science originated in the East and not in the West. That is what their main point, because they were under the impression all these days that all science came from Western countries. Because this is a very ancient book. We don't know how ancient it is. So they asked me to bring that book, but that book was not there with me. It was in India. Then I shifted to California. So University of California at Irvine, UCI. There also I spoke about it. There was one Srivatsan in biochemistry department. He was very keen about it, and also he asked me to bring. There's no such book. It is there in India. So finally, I wound up my stay in US and came back permanently to India in 1984. At that time, I landed in Bombay in Naren Sheth's house, and I wanted to revive this process somehow. So I landed in Hyderabad and I joined later in, of course, I worked in Tata Motors, Telco Pune, then finally I joined NIC Hyderabad. So in 86, I joined NIC Hyderabad. So I came in contact with Dr. B.G. Siddharth, who is the head of the Birla Planetarium. So he was conducting various conferences in 80s on the Rigveda, the statements in Rigveda referring to the phases of Mercury and Moon. So normally we see the phases of Moon, but we don't see Mercury and Venus. But he was talking of the phases of Mercury and Venus, which are described in the Rigveda according to him. So he says they are not visible to human eye. So there must be some lens. So do you know anything like that? Then I told him in this Viman Shastra, there is a whole chapter on Darpana, Darpanadhikaranam. There are some 46 types of glasses which had special properties and lenses could be made. And they could have used those lenses in telescope. Because even Kalidasa is around 300 BC. He refers to Mahapurushas as having Tikshna, like Suryakantamani, rays from Suryakantamani, sun rays. Suryakantamani is something like a lens. When the sun rays become focused out of it, they can burn anything. So that is what our children will do the experiments with magnifying glass. So it's basically a lens, whether it is a crystal or glass. So that lens was there, that was known in India. And even in Ayurveda, they have seen big molecules in the microscope, like proteins and other things. That's why they developed later the dosha theory, the dosha theory. So it can be seen with the microscope. We have a lens, very big molecules. So obviously they had lenses, and the Viman Shastra is corroborating it in a much more advanced manner. So Dr. Siddharth said, give me that book. I said, I'll not give you that book unless and until you do something solid about this. So what we proposed at that time, we will conduct a conference on ancient Indian science and technology in 1990. So we conducted on December 4th at the Birla Planetarium, Bhaskara Auditorium. And I brought Remal Surya Prakash Shastri to deliver the keynote address with the help of Remal Avadarlu, who is my good friend. And many scholars came from all over India to present on ancient mathematics, ancient chemistry, and so on. So at that time, one person, I brought this Naren Sheth from Bombay, and we may give a demonstration to the press how this Chumbakamani is generating voltage. So at that time, one person came from Medipatnam, His name is Yanamanda Ramakrishna. He was a Central Excise official, retired. He said, I have seen the original manuscripts of these books, this Vimana Shastra plus many other books in Bangalore 36 years ago. So we took him to Bangalore as a committee. We carried one Xerox machine. There is one person from Salar, now he's in Salarjung Museum, Mr. Retired. So he was with Birla Planetarium. He also came. So Yanamanda Ramakrishna took us to one house, which is the house of the great grandson of Dogarai Subra Shastri, who actually delivered these books orally. Closing his eyes, he chanted, and when G. Venkatachal Sharma wrote the manuscripts. I am having those Xerox copies with me at KMIT today also. When Govind Joshi came from Pune, I showed him them. So those handwritten manuscripts in old glazed paper, multiple copies were made and they were dispatched to Baroda Maharaja Shahajirao Library and also other libraries. And the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha in 1959 published that book with Hindi translation of Brahma Muni Paribhaj, which is what I was studying, which is what I was trying to do. So all this happened, and when we brought these things from Bangalore, we formed a committee, myself for interpretation and decipherment, and Dr. Siddharth for funding, and Professor M.C. Ganorkar, who was the ex-HOD of Chemistry Department of Usman University, to become who was the director of Chemistry Lab of the Birla Institute of Scientific Research at Asmangarh Palace at Dilsukh. So he appointed his PhD students, and we gave the press note saying that we are going to decipher something out of these various manuscripts, which we found in that Srinivas Murthy's house, 12 manuscripts. We copied all of them and brought. They contain not only Vimana Shastra, but Amshubodhini, Krutaka Vajra Nirnaya, Aptatopanyasa, Nigarasimha Parijat, Rajya Tantra, with different subjects. Because the Subra Shastri, he had his memory with all this text, and he used to simply close his eyes and deliver. And this G. Venkatachal Sharma used to write. I have those manuscripts, Xerox copies in my office at KMIT. Those who want to see can come and see. So only the Vimana Shastra was printed and published. Other books were not printed and published. But Amshubodhini was also printed by somebody else, not Arya Pratinidhi Sabha, with some English commentary. And much later in 70s, when G.R. Josher published the same Vimana Shastra with English commentary by himself, and he also had some diagrams at the end added. So the two versions, one is Hindi version, other is English version. English version is not so authentic. He has put a lot of question marks, too many ambiguities. Hindi version was better, but even there, a lot of question marks were there. So I was studying only the Hindi version with Sanskrit text given. And when this committee gave this press conference and we wanted to start research, this Naren Sheth said he will come only if all the future patents will be written on his name. And the Birlas were not willing to accept that because the Birlas were spending money, Birla Science Center. And therefore they said, no, we want to have all patents whatsoever. So Naren Sheth said, I will not come. So last minute he said that after having announced in the press. So I was in jitters, all of us, because if we don't do anything, then we'll be a laughing stock. So I was forced to enter into the shoes of Naren Sheth to decipher the Vimana Shastra text and produce something in these labs. So I tried many formulas. There are more than 200 formulas of materials. So the simplest was having only 3 inputs: Tamogar Bhaloha, Krishna Season Janjanikam Vajratundam Samamshataha, equal proportion of black lead, Anjanikam and Vajratundam, and then melt in a Sampurya Sukti Mushayam Sataka Krishna Vegata. Musha crucible similar to a mother of pearl, and then 100 kakshas of temperatures, then pour that liquid, black liquid, Shanai Shinche, then it will become Tamogar Bhaloha. This is the description given there. So in our lab, we had ceramic crucible. So we got these 3 materials after great difficulty of decipherment. Krishnasism, blacklead, we all know what it is, but what is Anjanikam, nobody knows. If you look at the dictionaries, like in Sanskrit, Hindi dictionary, they say Surma. Surma means what is applied to the eyes. That is not going to work here. What is Vajratunda? Vajratunda in the dictionary, it said Garutman. So what I am trying to say is the ordinary dictionaries, ordinary books, ordinary Sanskrit knowledge will not be adequate. They are all very general books. So Ayurveda is more closer. So I was running helter skelter, and I was only due to divine grace of the rishis. Of course, I also belong to Bharadwaj Gotra, and Dr. Subra Shastri also belong to Bharadwaj Gotra. And Bharadwaja is the author of this book. So early morning, 3 o'clock, every day I used to sit for 2 or 3 hours like a madman trying to figure out something. So when I was trying to figure out what is Anjanikam, one Anjanananda came to my house. He said, you go to Munnalal Davasas and say Surma, because Anjanam is given as Surma. Then you will ask Kala as Safed. You say Kala because it is Tamogarbha. So I went to Munnalal Davasas in Begum Bazaar and told Surma. Then he asked Kala as Safed. I said Kala. So he brought one stone. That is a mineral ore of lead sulfide. It's called Galena in English. And that was the correct hit. And the third one, Vajratundam. Garutman will not come into help here. So what is Vajratundam? What is Vajratundam? So I met many Ayurvedic experts. Ram Nivas Sharma, who wrote 25 books in Ayurveda. He lived for 100 years. He performed 2 crores Gayatri Japa. He told me this is Snuhi, that is cactus plant. And that also round is there, so many shapes are there. I said, no, use a long, tall one because we use in Ayurveda. So all right, we use that equal weight, proportion in weight, and we melted and we got one black material, which is called Tamogarbha Loha. Then I went to Usman University Physics department. We put a laser beam on it, and then measured its reflection characteristics and absorption characteristics. It is absorbed around 79%, 80%. It is like an approximate black body. It is very black. It's made up of lead sulfide, lead oxide. It's a compound or something like that. So we said, yes, Tamogarbha, it means it can absorb radiation. So this was the first result I got myself. Then I made one metal copper, 2 copper alloys, one from Pushpini Yantra, other from Vakra Prasarana Yantra. The Pushpini Yantra one was called Panchaloha, though it had only 3 inputs. Panchaloha Miti Prahu Tadvid Jana, though it is called Panchaloha, gold and silver dropped. So copper, zinc and lead. The same Anjanikam was used. And we produced that, and it came our Nam Mrudulam. So when we went and tested in the metallurgy lab of JNTU, they said it's very soft not for hand, but for machine. It can be made into wires or any shape. And when we tested its corrosion characteristics, it turned out to be corrosion resistant to salt, because it was being used in Pushpini Yantra, where many chemicals were being used. Pushpini Yantra was something like an air conditioner of modern times. Then the Araratamra, which was the part of Vakra Prasarana Yantra, the main body and the gears. Vakra Prasarana Yantra is a gearbox. Sarpatiriyak Gamanam, to reverse turn and snake-like motion, it was used, gearbox. So that material was called Araratamra. So Hemavarnam Drudham. So again in the metallurgy lab, it is a 2-phase alloy which was very strong. It had Young's modulus around 16.9, 17. Whereas steel is 15. It is harder than steel because it has some trace contents of iron. 0.5% iron was added in addition to copper, zinc and lead. So these 2 copper alloys and one that lead alloy, they're the first results we got within 6 months after I started. Only due to divine grace and grace of gurus and rishis. Otherwise it's not possible. Because I had nothing with me and I didn't have IIT Bombay background, what they did there. I just tried with my own efforts, and by grace only we got this. And then we published. Then they applied for patent. Birla Science Center people, they applied for. I didn't even give my name because I was a government servant, and Congress government was against all this. So they got the patents, Indian patents. Then I produced some glasses Chapalagraha Gloha, and then also some portion of Viman Shastra which is not published was available with B. Surnarayan Rao, the grandfather of B. V. Raman. B. V. Raman arranged my lecture at the World Heritage Institute of World Heritage. So in Bangalore. So I demonstrated this. He took me to the hall and showed those old one journal called Bhautika Kalanidhi, which was published by his grandfather, V. Surnarayan Rao, who was the one who met Suvaraya Shastri first time, arranged a scribe by name Vanganajan Sharma to record all this. And Subraya Shastri himself got that knowledge from his guru, who is supposed to be Bodhananda or Bhaskarananda, we don't know, in a cave in a forest near Anekal. Anekal is an outskirt in Bangalore today. And he stayed in the cave for 1 year, and he had some extraordinary experience of Astamastak Samyogam and all that. So after that, he became highly knowledgeable. He was just closing his eyes and reading out as if he's seeing. Like, our people chant Bhagavad Gita or Vedas, like that he used to chant. All these various Shastras of various topics. And they were being recorded by G. Venkatacharya. So the first evidences came independent of IIT Bombay here. And after that, we had a lot of visibility. We gave many. In fact, I was invited to a large number of universities, center like Tirupati, Sanskrit Vidyapit, and there I delivered this lecture, which was covered in full half page of Hindu newspaper. It was translated to all foreign languages. So it became a sensation throughout the globe. And then I was forced to diversify into biological products because high temperature furnaces were not available to produce Rajaloha, Vidyut Darpana, many other advanced materials. I've given all these details in the report which I circulated to you. So then the biological products, I made one powder which is used for the food for the Vimana travelers. And that powder is having high nitrogen, high protein content. It is made from grasses like Kusha, Darbha, Munja, and so on. Api Trunadinamcha, there is one sutra by Bharadwaj. Then, of course, I diversified into other texts also, like Tantra Shastra texts. If you know Ramayana, there are two people who are fighting, Rama and Ravana. But actually, Rama is not a technologist. He is only a warrior. The technology behind Rama is actually Bharadwaj. And the other side, Ravana. Ravana was a warrior as well as a technologist. So both were fighting. So both were, that means Bharadwaja and Ravana were fighting. Bharadwaja gave all the astras to Ram, apart from Vishwamitra in the beginning. So it is a technology war between Bharadwaja and Ram. So I thought, let me study what Ravana has. Ravana has written many books. He has written the commentary to Namakam Chamakam of Yajurveda Rudradhyaya. That is on the religious philosophy side. But he has written one book called Uddesha Tantra. So in that Uddesha Tantra, many tantric techniques were provided. And some of them were without mantras also. Most of them are with mantras. Like, Akarshanam, Vasikaranam, Mohanam, Stambhanam, Uchchatanam, then also Maranam. All these mantras, tantric kriyas, which I am not interested, and because I don't know any such mantras. Though they are given there, they will not work for us. Vina mantrena siddhyati, some formulas were there. One is Agni Stambhanam. So some herbal spray was prepared by me. Salepena kunchid vasturnadathyate. If you coat that lepam on any object, that object will not burn in fire, flame. So I produced that along with my son, who was a young boy, and we got a patent for it from Madras Patent Office, Agni Stambhanam. Then I got one Anaharam. Anaharam, there, both Kshut Pipas Apaham. There are some 6 different ingredients. You take one tablet, then your hunger and thirst both are overcome for half a day or so. That I tested on my own self in the hot sun in summer. I walked without water and food for hours together. And then I diversified into Anaharam into other texts. Like I found in various other texts, Anahara is a big subject. I tried many formulas, and finally I produced one very simple formula with 4 inputs. And that I made laddus and gave to a lot of people, hundreds of people. You eat one laddu, you'll feel very full. You don't require food for half a day or more. And if you take it for 40 days, your sugar will become normal and your weight will become. So medical tests were also performed by MV Diabetic Clinic at Mangalore. Dr. Vijayadhar Shetty, and reports are provided. And CFTRI toxicology report also is there. Animal trials, all this is there. But I have not taken patent because of some other reasons. So with this, I wrote all these things in my report. And now that the time is up, I will stop here. This is high technology in Sanskrit manuscripts, Vimanas, Astras, Shas, and other advanced technologies. Now, if you have any questions, you ask.
Guruji, I have one question. We use darba during grahana. We use darba. We put it on the food and all that. Does it actually prevent radiation? And how does it actually work? Should we just one piece of it will prevent radiation into the food?
Not one piece. It is a question of it's not radiation alone. See, it is the effect of grahanam. So, to this water and other things, if they are going to be, there is some unknown science behind it. The polarization of water molecules is affected by eclipse and so on. So this darba is like a purifier. It grows in very pure water. Even not only in Granam, but even in every ritual, darba is worn on the finger. And even Panini Maharshi himself wore darba and told the Panini Sutras. This is mentioned clearly. So it is a purifying element which is used in many rituals, and even normally people are using. Next to Yajnaopavitam, it is darba, it is used, and darbasnam is used. So it has got many special properties. That's all I can say. Full exact characterization nobody has done.
Okay. Also, it is tied in different ways for use by different at different rituals. No, that with the
Usually darba is on the
while doing upakarma and while doing shraddha, it is sort of different. That
not only then, even many other places. In fact, it is mentioned in one of the slokas that Panini Maharshi was teaching his sutras waving darba on his hand. And maybe sitting. Darbasnam I have in my house, I regularly use. It is an insulator. In any yoga practice, japa or meditation, you are not supposed to sit on the plain ground because it will discharge all your charge which you accumulate during the sadhana. You need an insulator, like you can have Krishnajinam or Darbasnam, or a wooden piece. Darbasnam is superior and it is unaffected by any impurities of all kinds, radiation or any other impurity. That is a different story, but here it's a different story. Here it is a powder. We're talking of the powder. See, everything has got different applications. Like, you have our curcumin, or pasupu,
turmeric.
Yeah, it has got tremendous number of applications. It is anti-cancer, anti-this, anti-that, so many. Similarly, so many other, like you take even the moringa, munaga. So it is a superfood, they say. Now they are realizing all these things are fantastic. There now, if you go to any park, you'll find all these juices available. Everybody is drinking every juice. So each juice is supposed to have a particular extraordinary property. So it's a very vast subject of Ayurveda, yoga, and then Jyotisha, all complex put together. And we don't know the subjects. We simply follow the broad principles. Do this, don't do this, don't. That's it. Like, for example, you take the muddy. Muddy means that muddy acharam, no touching. So what we were doing in COVID time, we were doing exactly that. That is like a quarantine. So there's so many things. Even the menses separation has got a lot of scientific bearing in it. We don't know exactly. Nobody tells exactly, but we can make out something is there. So a lot of investigation is required for further investigation. Various shastras. Ayurveda is a super shastra. And I have taken help of Ramnivas Sharma, and his son Surendra Sharma is there even now. So they're all connected. Ayurveda Shastra is connected to Vimana Shastra text, connected to Rasa Shastra text, connected to Yoga Shastra text. Yoga Shastra is connected to Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika is based on Ayurveda because atomic theory is a vast domain of its own independent framework of science.
Even the shlokas, and I don't know, I saw a book on Saundarya Lahari. The shloka, and in the beside it, it's given the mandala is drawn like triangle and all that. They say all the sciences are hidden in the shlokas, and
No,
there
no,
are
no.
some.
Actually, there's another interesting thing. Timoscope. Timoscope is an instrument which will produce a diagram for a sound. You know, in our school days, we studied what is called Lassoge's figures in physics. So if you have small particles of sand or something, mud or something on a big screen, kind of, and if you apply a tuning fork, the frequency, that will have a particular pattern create. So that is called Lassoge's figures in physics. We had an experiment. So now this timoscope is something like that. They apply particular sound, and they say that when they applied Om, long Om, it became triangles and Srichak. And when they apply Lalita Sahasranamam, Lalita Devi image comes. Like this, so many, there are reports like that. The research was done in Switzerland. I saw those papers somewhat 20 years back.
So tantras are also real.
Psychic
Then.
people, that means those who, no, definitely no. Apart from this, those who are having psychic powers.
Guruji, we lost your voice.
Where they can see the, and similarly, Om chanting is like Trikonas that our Sri Chakra. So it's a very advanced. Tantra, yoga are all related. Tantra, mantra, tantra. So they do work. That's why the temples are working. In every temple, below the temple murti, there will be a yantra of that particular devata. So it works. If it doesn't work, nobody will go there. So and Ayurveda works. If it doesn't work, nobody will go to Ayurveda. Yoga works. Otherwise, nobody will practice it. And nobody knows how they work. So it's far away from modern science. It is a world by itself. The mapping is possible to a limited extent. It is again not correct to think that everything in Sanskrit text can be interpreted in modern science. It need not be. So apples and oranges. Like for example, classical music, Indian classical music, you cannot interpret in Western classical music. They are two different things, apples and oranges. So similarly, like for example, Chinese medicine. Now nobody can interpret the entire Chinese medical system in allopathy. They never tried also. For example, acupressure, acupuncture. It works. Nobody knows how it works. According to Ayurveda, according to acupressure, acupuncture, which are Chinese medicine, allopathy is not there. And according to allopathy, they are not there. According to allopathy, acupuncture, acupressure should not work. But it works. And they cannot explain how. Similarly, yoga also. So nowadays, the allopathy practices are recommending yoga, recommending acupuncture, recommending acupressure, because they don't know how it works, but it works. So the limited scope of science is there. Even in health sector, science, allopathy is only one. The opposite of allopathy is homeopathy. They'll give the same medicine which will produce the same symptoms in a healthy person. It's like vaccination. What is COVID vaccination? Nothing but COVID itself. So the body reaction will be provoked. So in health sciences itself, we cannot have reductionist explanations from modern science point of view. How can we expect in other sciences like Tantra, Mantra, or Adhyatma, occult powers are there. People are able to read mind, tell future, see past. How you can explain how it is happening? Nobody knows. Okay.
Dhanyavad. Anybody else has questions, please ask. Unmute yourselves and ask.
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes.
It was interesting to see that artifacts which you have made during your Vimana Shastra study.
Yes.
It was good actually. You also told that those things you have made, like there's some black object and then the cylinder and with some gears, multiple gears. But you can say actually how you can think that this can, the flying part of it, how
Sorry?
we can guess that, this, what is more is required to make it fly. That's what. Anything you guessed?
Many things are there. See, in the flight, there are three principles existing in the flight. One is aerodynamic principle. The other is rocket principle. Third is helicopter principle, vertical takeoff. So in the Vimana Shastra, on all the three principles, three different Vimanas have been described. That is first point. This is identified by one Kompella Ramchandra Murthy, the professor of aeronautics of IIT Kanpur. I don't know if you know him. He retired long back. K. Ramchandra Murthy, he was the professor of aeronautics at IIT Kanpur. So he first identified that these three principles are being covered. That's a valid step, firstly. The description of Vimanas given there is very brief, only 3 pages for each Vimana. Whereas it contains many yantras, and each yantra having many parts, and those parts have to be reproduced with new materials. It is an impossible task. So I produced a few materials, and using those materials, I made the parts. That's all, it stopped there. So if you want to make Vimana, you have to make so many yantras and their parts and their materials. It's a long, large project. It is possible only if a huge effort is made, which is not made. Only a few people like me, I'm not the only person, like Marian Chet was there. And then somebody in Guntur also tried some alloys, and somebody else in somewhere else. A few people tried and they produced some alloys, reproduced what I've done, and they have done their own also. So that means there is some truth in it. See, by mathematical induction, if 1 is true, 2 is true, 3 is true, then n is 2 and plus 1 is true. So if it's not that just only one person, CSR Prabhu did and nobody else did, it's not like that. First IIT Bombay did it, DFR characterized, then CSR Prabhu did it, and then somebody in Guntur did it, and somebody else somewhere did it. Depends on who did what and how much effort he has put. So many people independently doing similar or same or similar things from the same text shows that the text is not necessarily fake. Random sample. So the rest, we have not made. So we cannot say whether they are true or false. If you say, if I make a statement, oh no, all these are fantastic, they're true, then people ask, where is the evidence? I will not say that. I'll say, I have produced only this much, I have only this much evidence, this much is true. And my friend has produced this much this is true. The rest we don't know.
Sir, one more thing, you told 3 principles of flying. But when there is a so-called reporting about the UFOs, unidentified flying object, the flying disc, unidentified flying objects, UFOs.
Yeah.
They thought that there must be some another principle, 4th principle of flying also.
What is
Is
that?
it possible?
What is that? What is that?
Rotating thing, they could not understand exactly. So therefore, they
No.
told it doesn't fall under all these three things.
You are talking of anti-gravity.
Anti-gravity. Mostly, I think it is called anti-gravity.
Actually, in this Rukma Vimana, in Vimana Shastra, there is a Rukma Vimana. It is a vertical takeoff landing craft. It is using suction. It is getting thrust through suction, but it's not adequate to fly. And it is using some other mechanisms which we could not decipher, which are resulting in anti-gravity. The anti-gravity result comes. The thrust required will be very less. So we could not decipher fully that anti-gravity mechanism. We could easily decipher the thrust mechanism. And similarly in Tripura Vimana, which is a craft which can fly in 3 different media, underwater, over land, and into the sky. So they made the body with a material which is called Trinetra Loham, and he has described Abhedyam, Achedyam, Jala Agni Vata Tapajay Abhedyam, Nashavarjitam, Adahyam, Achedyam. So this is a super alloy, but we could not reproduce. We tried, but it had some radioactive materials as inputs we don't have. Then inside that Tripura, he has mentioned that it will fly out of sun rays. Suryamshu Janita Shakti. So now solar technology today cannot produce so much thrust that you can overcome the escape velocity and go into space. So they have used some other mechanisms. They have used some radioactive materials, some kind of nuclear, not fusion, not fission, but something else, maybe cold fusion. We don't know what the hell it is. That is producing the energy. In fact, Abdul Kalam asked me to bring the entire design. I met him at North Block when he was advisor to Defense Minister. Then he asked me to bring the entire design. He wanted to make it as basically a hyperplane, amphibious hyperplane in the defense parlance. So we designed, I and my friend Karnik at Pune, but it's not complete. It's a very difficult situation. See, we have something, but we don't have complete. So we cannot go and tell, Abdul Kalam, come on, here it is. Then he'll say, produce it. Because we are not completely understood. So I refrained from that. And that's the reason why I refrained from writing a book also. I started the book, I completed partly, but then people will ask, what is this, what is this, what is this? It's not possible to explain fully. So I only wrote this report, nothing else. The report, nobody can question what is in it. I've given very clear details. You write a book, then you say this is there, that is there. Then I'll say, show us. We cannot show. We tried to produce Rukma Vimana in one of the colleges here. We are stuck with this because we cannot understand the anti-gravity mechanism which he has explained there.
Yeah.
So 90%, 99% of the book cannot be understood. So that 1% is what I have tried to understand, and others also try to understand. But even that 1% is an evidence.
But whatever progress you have made, have you recorded it so that if by chance...
Just now I told you that report. Again you are asking.
No, the report you gave us, you said only what can be proved.
Did you read that report?
I started reading. I just got it.
Please read, and your question is answered in that report.
Okay, Guruji. Any more questions from anybody? Else we'll close with Prarthana. It was a very good lecture. Dhanyavad, Guruji. It's been 3 days of space travel for us, literally, or travel in Wonderland, like. Close with Prarthana. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Dhanyavadaha. Swasti. We can stand up for national anthem. जनगणमनाधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष माहे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे। जय हिंद। धन्यवाद। नमः सर्वेभ्यः. We will close record.